Apache Karaf Essentials. I'm Jamie Goodyear. Today we're going to talk about the OSGi Bundle Activator. So in Apache Karaf, when we're building out our applications, generally we're building out jars, which in our system we call bundles. They contain your manifests, which have all of the headers that allow us to interact with that OSGi environment. And we also have a special class called an activator. That allows us to tell the system how we want to start and stop our bundle. Let's take a little look at this now. This particular class is implementing the Bundle Activator interface. This comes to us from the OSGi framework. It allows us to customize the starting and the stopping of our bundle. The actual code for this is pretty simple. We just add in this class and say, hey, here's a start and stop method. We take in the bundle context, that's our hook into the OSGi runtime, and then we can start doing things. It might be making connections to databases or web services, or maybe it be registering our services that we want to make available within the JVM. Now, we are going to take a look at registering services a little later in the video, so just hold on that topic. To make sure that our jar, our bundle we're building, is being told, hey, where does this particular class live? We have to tell it in the Maven bundle plugin configuration. On the screen here, we are identifying the bundle activator in the instructions, and we just have to give it the path to the particular class that's implementing that interface. Let's get down into the code because that'll make it a little easier to understand what's happening here. So I have opened up IntelliJ. I'm going to use a Maven template here now to generate for us the basic bundle code. So let's just run this one here. You're going to see that we're going to set up ComSav or Apache Karaf Essentials bundle as our group ID, activator as our artifact ID, and we'll let this build out. We're just going to have to say, yes, we want this bundle to be built out. And we can see in here, we have a brand new activator. It's created right here. Let's take a look at the code. Okay, so I'm going to add this as a Maven project at first, just to make this a little easier to read. I think that's already been picked up. Brilliant. There we go. So let's take a look in the POM first, and we'll take a look at the code. This is our standard boilerplate for a Maven project. We can see our group ID, artifact ID version, and we see the bundle packaging, very important. We can see our dependency on OSGi core because we are going to be implementing part of it, i.e. the activator, and our Maven bundle plugin. We can see our activator class has been configured. Now let's take a look at the actual code behind this. It's very straightforward. We just had to implement a start and a stop method. Pretty straightforward. Let's build up the code, and we're going to then install this into a Karaf runtime. Okay, we've built up our bundle. Let's start up an awaiting Karaf. This is Karaf 446. Let's do the installation. So we have it here. I'm going to use a copy and paste just to make sure I get that full pathway in here. And we can see the bundle ID has been set up. We can take a look at the headers of this file. I always like to see what's being exported or imported by the system. And let's resolve it. We're going to resolve bundle number 53, and then when we type it up, we'll see it's resolved. Then we're going to start it. We expect it to print to the console because it's got a print line in here that they've started the bundle. There we go. Okay, let's go back to the slides. So we've talked just about how to get that activator installed into your bundle. Let's get to a little bit more of a difficult part of this conversation though. This is when OSGi starts becoming hard. We do have solutions about this. We'll talk about that at the very end of this talk. So don't worry, you're not going to have to do this every time you make applications. But what we do need to talk about is the dynamic runtime nature in Karaf OSGi. We expect applications to be coming and going. Those applications can include service registrations. So if a bundle is stopped and it's providing a service to our container, well, we have to handle that service is coming and going away. That's part of the dynamic nature. The activator is the place that we add in these hooks. So if you're implementing it manually inside of a bundle activator, you're going to have to be aware of that. So let's take a little look about how we go about this, and then we're going to dive in on the command line. Don't worry, we're not going to just leave you here. One of the things we have to pick up is going to be the OSGi compendium. That is the extra bits that are going to be used in showing us how we can access service registrations. And we're also going to talk about managed services. The biggest point of a managed service that we need to know is that's going to allow us to connect into things like configuration admin. So two interfaces we're going to talk here. service registrations. These are going to be what we're going to use to set up a service and then be able to use it and then unregister it from our runtime. And we're also going to talk about the managed service, which is going to allow us to update. In our case, we're going to say updating with configuration. Now, OSGi goes back a while, so they use dictionaries. It's a not as commonly used pattern today, but that is what we use to be able to pass in configurations. Now, we're going to look at this at a very high level, and we're going to take a look at each one of these points here inside of our bundle activator, and then we're going to try and do this into code. So just bear with me as we work through this. Up first, we have our service registration as part of our bundle. We are going to be using this service registration on starting our bundle, and we want to introduce a service registration to the environment, and then when we stop our bundle, we're going to want to unregister that. So inside of our start, we can see that we have a service registration that we're going to say, hey, get into the environment and register a managed service. Managed service in this case means it can use configurations. And we're going to wire this in with a sample code updater. We'll show you that in a little bit. And a set of properties. So that's a basic configuration. When we're stopping our bundle, we're going to say, hey, take our service registration and we want to unregister it. So that way the system knows that this service has no longer got a operating implementation. And in our little piece of extra code we have here, we are implementing the managed service, which is saying, hey, update our dictionary. So every time we get an update event, we're going to say, hey, go and take our configuration, and we want to be able to pull out some of the properties that are in there. In our case, we're going to have a little simple piece of code. It's going to say, hey, I got a port, I have a URL, and I want to refresh what those are. So I can go into my config and then say, hey, I don't want to be on port 80, now I want to be on port 8080. And we can just at runtime update that without having to shut down the JVM and bring everything back up. So let's take a look back here on IntelliJ and let's improve our code. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit of extra work for us. First, we're going to go back into our POM file, and I've got some of this off to the side screen here, so I can just copy and paste it in to make this a little faster. We're going to add back in here our compendium, and that's going to allow us to use some of these extra pieces. And I'm going to add in an extra class in here. Now, what this class here is going to be a little bit of sample code, and this is just a little object that we're going to use to say, hey, we want something here that we can use configuration values on and update based on it. And it's just going to have a whole lot of extra outputs put into it. So we can say, hey, when we build the object, we'll see what it's been set up with. And if we change the configuration, we can see that changing at the runtime. Let's go back into our activator code. So we are going to add in all of that extra code that we had on our slides. And I'm just going to copy and paste it in here just to save a little bit of time. And then I'm going to make sure we have updates to all of our imports. Just give me a moment to grab those. And then we're going to recompile and deploy this into our running Karaf. Okay, everything is now in here. Let me just go back in and we are going to do a quick rebuild. And now back here at Karaf, I am aware that this is going to be looking for a config file. So I'm going to run this first without the config, and then I'm going to put the config back into the etc folder. That's where configure-min looks in Apache Karaf, and we'll get to see the dynamic nature. So we're going to use the update command on bundle 53. Reminder, update means it's going to go and look for that particular bundle and get the latest version of it and reload it into our system. And what we should expect here now is that the original would have just said, hey, stopping bundle. Now we'll see it will stop the bundle, and then we're going to see starting, and we're going to be saying that it's going to look for some configuration files. And there we go. It started up and then said, hey, no configurations were found, as we expect. Let's stop this Karaf because I want to go in there and create that. Actually, you know what? Let's not stop Karaf. I'm going to go directly into the etc folder and just create this. So let's take a look for our Karaf instance. It should be just down one more folder. And I'm going to go into its etc folder and I'm going to write out the following. Let's see. I'm going to have this particular file created. And inside of it, I am going to set a port and a URL. The original port was set as 1111, and URL was on localhost. I'm going to just set this as a set of port and URL. We don't have anything in here to validate at this point. This is just to show you the concept. I'm setting that in there, so that's been written out. And Config actually saw it and said, hey, look, we want to get port 1234 and URL 255.0.0.1 up and running. We actually updated that immediately. There's the live runtime configuration. If I go back in that file and change it, so I'm going to say instead of port 12345, let's just change that port to be, let's see, what would be a good number, 2222, and I'll write that out, and we should see that it immediately got picked up and refreshed again. This code is just updating and running, and we're keeping everything in play. That's kind of the cool part of working with a Karaf system. We have that ability. Now, you might be asking, how do we make this a little easier on ourselves? Because that's a lot of boilerplate code, and I can see how that can get really confusing. What do you do with service registrations as things come and go? What happens is all these bundles start and stop. Do I have to do this all the time? No. Most developers use either Blueprint or declarative services, but that'll be the topic of a future chat. For today, thank you for listening. Remember, like and subscribe our videos. Have a great day. Cheers.